If you're renovating your home and suddenly every decision feels equally important and overwhelming, then this video is for you. You may have caught yourself thinking, I just need to figure out my style. I need every room to be perfect. Maybe I just need a bigger house. I actually don't think it's any of those things. I think you're just trying to figure out every decision all at once. Today, I want to share 3 timeless ideas that have become kind of filters in the way I make design decisions. I found all of these before I became an interior designer, and they have been very helpful to me in my journey since then, including now while I renovate my own home. The first tidbit of wisdom came to me at the unwise age of 26 years old, and it has stuck with me since. I had just moved to New York City and signed the lease on an amazing loft apartment. It was at the corner of 23rd Street and Madison Avenue. It had huge windows that overlooked Madison Square Park and the original Shake Shack. I had no roommates, so it was just me to make all the design decisions of how I was going to take on making this space a home for me. I was very excited, but I was also very overwhelmed. A few days in, I was reading the newspaper, and this quote kind of jumped off the page at me, and it struck me in such a way that I ended up ripping it out and keeping this piece of paper with this quote on it in my wallet for years. The quote read, "If you want a golden rule that will fit everybody, this is it. Have nothing in your houses that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful." For years, it stayed with me as advice on decorating, and it wasn't until much later that I realized it actually wasn't about decorating. It was teaching me that the way we design our homes reflects what we value. I want you to take a careful look around your place and ask yourself whether it's representative of who you are and who you're becoming, or if it's a reflection of a version of yourself that no longer exists. It could be that your marital status has changed, you're welcoming home a new baby, or maybe your kids have moved out and gone away to college and now you're an empty nester. Maybe you're starting a solopreneur journey and you need to convert one of your rooms into a home office. Different lives deserve different homes. That's why your house is going to look different than Ashley down the streets. If you're not familiar with William Morris, I'm certain you would recognize his patterns. He was a British textile designer and one of the founding fathers of the arts and crafts movement, which prized craft and handiwork over mass-produced furniture of the Industrial Revolution. William Morris believed that homes should reflect the individual, not the marketplace. Does this sound vaguely familiar? If we follow the media algorithm, we all end up with the same cookie-cutter looking home. Morris wrote this in 1880, and I would say this challenge still exists today. That is to choose intentionally instead of copying automatically. Here's the practical piece to all of this. For each existing piece of furniture or object, maybe it's like wainscoting in your house, look at it and ask yourself, like, is this beautiful? Does it serve a purpose? It doesn't have to be the same purpose for which it was intended. But then ask yourself, would I make this same design choice and select this? And if not, it's time to go. Now, as you bring new objects into your home, keep the receipt and move it around. See how it looks besides existing furniture to create different combinations of color and texture and shape, and live with it. Live with it for a while and just experiment, have fun with it. William Morris reminds us that curated homes don't happen in one afternoon. They are the result of a life well lived, collected, and edited over time that tells you what belongs. The next principle will help you decide what needs to be added. This is what I'm going through right now as I'm selecting everything for my house, but especially as I'm exploring lighting for my bedroom. If I just look at beautiful photos of fixtures, I get overwhelmed by all the choices. But when I think about what the space needs as I interact with it, it helps me to narrow down my choices. In his 10 principles of good design, Dieter says in principle number 2, good design makes a product useful. A product is bought to be used. It has to satisfy certain criteria. not only functional, but also psychological and aesthetic. Good design emphasizes the usefulness of a product whilst disregarding anything that could possibly detract from it. Dieter Rams was a German industrial designer who was the chief design officer at Braun and then later on Vitzu. So his entire job was to make sure that products were useful and highly functional. They also had to be beautifully designed and psychologically meaningful to humans. Now there's an existing big light in my bedroom that I had already had my ceilings done, so I'm not going to move the junction box placement. It is directly over my bed, and so I'm going to need a fixture that obscures the bulb from my eyesight when it's on, but is also beautiful to look at. However, if it's just beautiful and it doesn't function the way I need it to, it's going to become meaningless pretty quickly. I will tell you what I tell friends who come to me for design advice and ask, like, should I buy this coffee table? I tell them, ask yourself, what do I need this coffee table to do for me? Does it need to display pictures and mementos? Does it need to hide remote controls and Kleenex boxes? Is it going to be the center stage for a future games night? Utility makes items and objects earn their place, especially if you're in a small space or on a tight budget. We're often taught to decorate based on what looks nice, but interior design is actually the practice of how people live and interact with their space and objects. Once you've edited, once you've made every incoming item earn its place, there is one final layer: the details. If there is only one thing you remember today, let it be this: design is everywhere. It is not just in the artwork. It is not just in the wallpaper pattern. It is in the grout color and the thickness of that grout between the tiles. It is in the reveal around a cabinet. It's in the thickness of a countertop. It is in the way daylight pours in through a window, and it's in how that window frames the outside view. That is all designed. Charles Eames famously said, "The details are not the details. They make the design." In my own renovation, the initial stain color I chose for my floors was beautiful. I tested it in this section of the room where the wood grain pattern was very tight and there was little variance in the grain pattern. I was convinced that I had found the perfect stain color on my first try. And then I applied it to the whole room. And in sections where the wood grain was much more distinct, it took on like a life of its own. It literally looked like a zebra pattern to me. It was a lot. So I had to resand, retest, and then reapply different stains until I found one that I felt was a much lower contrast. So adjusting my plans to account for that detail in the wood grain pattern completely changed the final outcome. Now it is a beautiful yet subtle hazelnut color that is very happy to be a supporting character to the other objects in the room. So don't feel the need to over-design on the big moves. The culmination of those small details together will make your space look very elegant and well curated. Unfortunately, I've seen beautiful renovations lose something special just because people had decision-making fatigue, especially DIY renovations on YouTube. Like the poor dears, they're tired, they're running out of money, like I've been there. And so they rush past design opportunities and they just play it safe or they settle on something less. And ironically, those final decisions can be things that you end up interacting with every single day. Like, this light switch is not gonna stay. I just had to cover it because I felt really embarrassed about having it. But there's a lot that has to happen before I can put the final light color on there. I want you to notice something about these three principles. None of them started with aesthetics or the size of the space you have or the color of the year, they all started with thinking. Like, edit what you have, keep what's personally meaningful. Choose pieces that earn their way by way of utility and beauty. Refine the details with intention, because that itself is the design. When you do those three things, your style naturally begins to emerge. Not because you found it on Pinterest or your For You page, but because you uncovered it through your inquiry within yourself. So I searched, but I cannot find the quote on that newspaper clipping I mentioned. It's probably in a box somewhere, but I made something for you that you cannot misplace. If you check out the description below, you'll find a link that will take you to a downloadable digital wallpaper with the quotes that we discussed here today. And I hope this will just be a helpful reminder for you as you go through this process of what's actually important, and that you connect more with yourself and your space through this. If this way of thinking and approach to interior design resonates with you, go ahead and hit that like button so I know what type of content to bring to you. And you may want to hit subscribe so you can see the progress I make on my own renovation. My goal here isn't to tell you what your home should look like. It's to help you make design decisions to create a space that you will love for years to come. If you liked this video and you're navigating your own home renovation, I think you'll like this next video where we talk about interior design trends and what to focus on instead. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one. Bye.